in a region of England not really known for being tough. Nice, two pretty rough cities with two pretty rough sets of people and a very rough derby that doesn't come along very often. It's derby days on the south coast. First in over 7 years. On first glance, the southern English county of Hampshire is a pretty lovely place to live.
It's beautiful.
Picture postcard views, as everyone would see and want. You know, your quintessential little village with the village pub.
It was where all the money is kind of centralised, and it was where cricket was invented, which is like, you know, very well to do.
Many years ago, Winchester was the capital of England.
All mansions and castles, flowing rivers, forests and farms. It's full of some of the most expensive property in England.
And land down here in Hampshire, down south, is very expensive.
There's some big country houses, some big mansions.
If you're going to buy a decent house, that's going to cost you £1 million.
Due to its southern location and distance from the Atlantic Ocean, it enjoys one of the better climates in the UK.
Well, look at the weather.
The saying is, you know, the weather changes north of Winchester.
At the moment, we're getting the hot wind from Spain, aren't we?
In the south, the temperature's a lot more warmer. The weather isn't so vicious. We don't get the snowstorms that you get a little bit north.
And with a centuries-long history of prosperity, which still sees it enjoy one of the lowest rates of unemployment in the UK, the people of Hampshire are often a lot better off than the rest of England.
But Hampshire as a county is a very rich county.
And there's a lot of affluence, there's a lot of money.
With the landed gentry, the people that own big estates, big farms, big houses.
This is so close to London.
People who got rich and could travel, they wanted to move out and not spend all their time in London.
Put simply, Hampshire is the kind of place the North are referring to when they talk of southern softies.
People from the North consider themselves a more gritty, authentic, working class type of people. They consider people from the South a bit soft.
Or like really weak and pathetic.
And soft?
Yes.
It goes back to the Victorian era, because in the Victorian era, England was industrialised, all the industry was in the north.
All the coal works, steel works were up north, you know, you have to be a bit burly.
But people from up north would look probably down south and go, they always call us shandy drinking, soft and all that sort of stuff.
It's a wealth thing, there's north-south divide.
But down amongst the lower parts of the county, otherwise known as the Hampshire Basin, the luxuries of Greater Hampshire aren't as forthcoming.
You know, if you asked a northerner about Hampshire, he'd probably think you were quite affluent and well off. I don't think they'd realise that in certain areas, you'd be quite surprised what you found there.
It's like anywhere, you have your nice place, you have your bad place. I suppose everywhere's like it, but this place is probably worse than most.
No more so is this the case than in the city of Portsmouth.
You say where you're from, say Portsmouth, and they say, oh, where's Portsmouth? Say, it's on the south coast. If people are like, oh, Hampshire, and you're like, you don't get it. Yeah. You don't get it at all.
Portsmouth is the Cockney Hampshire. People have said before it's like a northern town dropped in the south.
Portsmouth is a special little city with a very unique little layout.
Because it's the only island city in the country.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's the only one.
Only island city in the country.
On our own, we didn't we? Our own island, didn't we?
4 miles wide, 4 miles long.
Portsea Island is the island. Portsmouth is the city on the island.
Unlike the field-strewn north of Hampshire, Portsmouth is actually England's most densely populated city due to the lack of space on the island, which meant they had to stack house upon house to accommodate the boom in the working class post-war.
You had 150,000 people condensed onto a small island of about 4 miles square. Exceedingly claustrophobic.
Not only does Portsmouth look different to the rest of Hampshire, they live differently too, and often it's not for the better.
Charles Dickens, who was born in the city, and they've got a ward named after him, and the ward that he was born in is still an area of poverty. It's perplexing. People believe in trickle-down economics, but I've seen it. We live at the bottom end of it, and it doesn't happen.
The city suffering from the Blitz didn't help either.
The old city was bombed and bombed and bombed. And we used to play on bomb sites because the houses were gone.
And so over time, these tough circumstances and their island base has created a tribalistic mentality in the mindset of the locals.
If you fit in, you fit in. if you don't, then we're a very self-policing city. If you don't fit in, then you won't be made welcome.
English have got an island mentality, haven't they? It's even more of an island mentality here. You've got to think this is an island mentality off an island. So that's why we're kind of that proud.
In fact, so unique is life on the island here, they even created their own slang.
If you're speaking it, you don't realise it's a thing. It's only when I left I realised that people didn't know what a dinlo was.
Say dinlo, yeah, a lot of people say people are dim, but for some reason it's been turned around to dinlo.
You don't call it beer, you call it shant. Getting drunk, shant, or is a beer shant?
Squinny is one that is untranslatable. It's like when you get a beautiful word in Italian or Spanish to describe a painting, it can only really work in that kind of beautiful language they've got. It's the same as squinny.
What is mush? Mush is like the number one, right?
Yeah, mush is just like man. I've heard a bloke at Fratton Park once, I know word of a lie, say pretty much a sentence built up of only the word mush. Like, this mush mushed me on, this other mush. I couldn't believe the mush was sounding like that.
They've even got their own word for Portsmouth, Pompey.
There's multiple definitions for the reason behind Pompey. There's no one knows, which is kind of beautiful about it.
And so, with a different way of life, mentality, and even language, a bit of relationship formed with the rest of the county.
I don't really care for Hampshire. I've never ever said I was from Hampshire.
It's a big flag, and it used to say on it, People's Republic of Portsea Island. We've got everything we need here. Why do we need them or anything they've got?
And also, like, Hampshire don't want us.
But to best understand what it means to be Pompey, you need to understand the importance of their docks and the industry that this city was built on. The Navy and Portsmouth are
inseparable, yeah. I mean, everyone in the city will have a connection to the Navy somehow. Both my granddads were in the Navy, friends are in the Navy, relatives have been in the Navy.
I don't think there's many places in the world where war and conflict are such a part of the fabric of the city.
As we like to say, it's a city of war. All the major battles of this country have been launched from Portsmouth, from Agincourt to D-Day to Falklands.
The people of Portsmouth have seen it over generations in the aftermath of war.
We've got war memorials everywhere. I reckon there's many more memorials than any other city.
On the night before D-Day, a mass was said at that church, and Churchill, Eisenhower, and all the other leaders went to this mass.
What, at a church in Portsmouth?
Yeah.
Eisenhower, Churchill.
All of them. Because what you got to remember, really, it's the city that wars are won from.
And I feel like because of what they've been through, everyone here is very well educated and passionate about their local history.
What you're looking at now is steeped in history, mate.
We've been on the front line of defending this country, and it's spread into the people like that.
We know probably the names of every single man who was on HMS Victory 200 years ago.
And I think because of that, people just, they want to be able to show it, and I'm the same. I want to be covered in it, made in Pompey.
And so what happens when you combine a working class community with tough living conditions, a hostile disposition, and an industry based on war? You get a pretty tough, at times violent place.
Yeah, going out from behind while I was fighting.
And it's very, very hard.
Nearly lost my eye, that one.
Street fighting city.
They tried to take my nose off and it went. This was a rough area. Virtually when you got up in the morning, fight till you're going back to bed again. You could fight anywhere.
Is it a toxic masculinity thing, you think? Is there machoism part of it?
It's not, Portsmouth hasn't got to the point where it's ready to deal with things like toxic masculinity.
I've bit ears off, bit noses off.
So it's a different thing.
Teeth marks, there's all teeth marks.
People have been in your hands?
Yeah, no, well, I've been hitting on the teeth.
Oh.
The docks, the Navy.
What's a matlow?
Matlow's a sailor.
And have you heard about this matlow bashing?
Matlow, yeah, I should do it.
Breeding war.
What happened to your knuckles?
Well, they're knocked back. You've got one back here.
That's a knuckle?
Yeah, right there.
That's a knuckle.
And deprivation, before you start using terms like toxic masculinity, because it's quite like, you know, telling people off before you understand why they're coming from where they're coming from.
I think violence is a good character builder.
Everything you've been told to be a hero and get hero status is through violence and war, and what else are you going to think?
When you've had the beatings I took, fighting was so easy, I used to love it. You couldn't beat me enough.
Like, if I was surrounded by Anthony Gormley sculptures, then maybe I thought the best way to be a hero was to be a fine artist. But unfortunately, I was surrounded by beautiful tributes nonetheless to brave people that died at war, but indeed made their hero status during violence.
But it's always been in the history of Portsmouth, boxing. Navy as well, there's always boxing in the Navy.
You've got to be tough in this city, don't you?
Really, absolutely.
Why? Why is that?
Because, you know, it's a city where you've got to be strong to survive, you know?
Portsmouth owes its very existence to aggression.
It's the way it is. We come from nothing, you know, so every fight.
Because this island, for so many years, it experienced war and violence, genetics in the Portsmouth people still harboured this sort of violent tendency.
So basically, if you couldn't fight, you wouldn't get a tattoo?
No.
And why is that?
Because it causes trouble.
Yeah.
And these Pompey dots, these are called Pompey dots. I've done these when I was 13.
Is that a military thing?
No, it's a local thing.
Do you have Pompey dots?
Yeah.
Can you get a show of the Pompey dots? What are Pompey dots? All your mates had it?
Yeah, everyone had it.
He did it himself. He did it. And what's it? It's just a tattoo you get at 13.
Right, if I hit somebody with the right, but I can't.
As you do.
Everybody did it themselves.
With what? A tattoo gun?
No, a tattoo gun.
With a needle and Indian ink, yeah.
Wait.
Do you know what I mean? Bit of needle and a needle and a bit of ink and sit there and fucking stab it.
You're talking shit at 13 years old. Now look, don't get me wrong, in the short time we've been here, we've learned that if you scratch the surface and earn their trust, the people from Pompey will take you under their wing with a smile and a hug as big and strong as you're ever likely to experience. But on top of all of that, you're also gonna have a laugh. It's a tough city.
Well, meet my wife and you'll find out.
There's a humour here, without a doubt.
He's talking to a famous TV personality anyway. He was an extra in Mr. Bean.
That's right.
So you are talking to...
I'm used to media.
In a hard living city, in times of deprivation, humour always comes out.
He said, can you bring some friends then? We meet them. They're all gone.
In a bad situation of being able to at least release something through it by laughing.
The fact that I asked you to bring your friends and you can't because many have passed on, but you laugh about that. Is that Pompey humour again?
Yeah, it's the humour.
Quite a caring, compassionate people, but not to be messed with.
But in this very tough town, there is one thing everyone has a soft spot for. Their one and only football club, Portsmouth FC. Portsmouth FC is the pride and joy of this entire island.
It's part of the community, the club. It's a massive part of it, and it's a very proud part of it.
And I'm not sure if it's the tribalistic nature of the island or the fact that this is the only club in the city, but the obsession locals have with this club rivals almost anything I've ever seen.
I can't imagine life without Portsmouth Football Club, and I don't say that like as a cliche thing. It really does feel like that. It just feels like a shadow. It doesn't sound too dark, but without Portsmouth, what's there to life?
Maybe again it's the Island mentality. It's like, that's all we've got here. There's no two clubs here. We're a one-club city.
It means so much to me like that I can't imagine what life is like. Try and imagine a brand new colour. Try and imagine if the sun stopped working one day.
You've been there for them in the good times.
Wembley is now known as our second home, and I would believe that because when we go there, we take so many. The Checker Trade Trophy is a Mickey Mouse trophy for the lower league teams, and we still took 45,000 to it.
They've been there in the bad.
At the start of this decade, we were literally going to go bankrupt. We're a club that had been there since 1898.
People chipped in, bought their own club, bought all what was owed, paid off the debts.
What, the fans?
Yeah, the fans did.
They put out a share scheme. Everybody put £1,000 in to buy the club.
It had gone to the Supreme Court and fought our side against, I guess, modern football.
Yeah, hell of a lot of money. I had to scrimp and scrape save for it, definitely.
So the fan really did keep this club alive.
Like any true footballing city, every facet of this club reflects its surroundings, from the badge.
So we're one of the few clubs in English football that use the city emblem as well as the club emblem is the same thing. And we've got the Portsmouth emblems everywhere. Every drain, manhole cover, on almost every fence you can find that's from a certain period made of real British steel. They'll have the Portsmouth emblem in it, or brickwork on the masonry, you'll have a Portsmouth symbol.
To their 120-year-old home, Fratton Park, an oddball construction of tin, mock Tudor and wood that at first glance looks a bit outdated, yes, but on second exudes this incredible romance of old school British football.
A football stadium from 2 centuries ago.
That's how much 5 and 6 in the old penny days.
That you won't even be able to try and build anything close to it now. It's impossible to replicate what we've got.
Eyesight, your gaze is exactly with the ball. That is unbelievable, that.
How many mock Tudor football stadiums can you think of?
A wooden floor. You guys were... Wait, were they wooden in the Premier League?
Yeah, it's always been like this, yeah.
And when it's good at Fratton Park, they say it's as good as anywhere in the world.
You got Jose Mourinho saying it.
I remember Portsmouth. It's such a small stadium. The atmosphere was absolutely incredible.
Thierry Henry obviously must have touched him because at the end of the game he walked back out in a Pompey shirt. You got Ronaldinho's.
What did he say? Best atmosphere in world football?
Ronaldinho?
Yeah, that's what he said.
But besides the badge and even the stadium, it's its fan base that best reflects this city. A proud crowd, passionate crowd, but at times a rough crowd. The type who you really wouldn't want to mess with. You see, whereas the football violence problem in England is more associated with the late 70s and late 80s, here in Portsmouth, their fan base had a far tougher element from the 60s.
I think it all started back in sort of 69.
But it was the late 80s where the Portsmouth fan base really got their reputation, using their typical Pompey bravado and a British rail timetable.
We weren't tough as anyone, we was game as anyone.
We would go to the old den at Millwall on a Boxing Day. 300 lads turn up, and no one would do that at Millwall.
Well, we used to say the only reason you don't go to an away game is if you're nicked.
If you're from this city, you are a bit fearless. You think you're invincible. So when you went to away games...
Newcastle away. Where's this?
Crystal Palace. That's Cardiff away.
In Cardiff. So we're driving down the road. We went down in furniture vans with the roll-top backs. There were about 30 in the back. Next thing we've heard, bang, bang, bang. And next thing, the shutter came up. There was just a policeman stood there with a dog in his arms. Threw it in the van. Alsatian.
No.
Yeah, took a liking to my mustard-coloured Pringle.
And then left you with that?
Yeah.
30 years ago?
Yeah.
Not enough for the South Coast, because that actually makes me feel nauseous.
I mean, you have to put football violence in the backdrop of society at that time. Deprivation in 1979, Thatcher's Britain. People had no jobs, there was nothing for youth culture, was there? To suddenly be a part of something, to have close friends, clothing, to go away to towns you'd never been to.
We got a hell of a lot of respect from Millwall. A hell of a lot.
And a hell of a reputation.
Yeah.
The group behind much of the violence called itself the 657 Crew.
The name itself, how did that come about?
To get to away games, especially up north, you've got to get a train to London, then get your connecting train. So the first train out of Portsmouth used to be the 657 in the morning.
You got up at 5:30 for the footy?
Yeah.
Even in the winter?
Even at the best time of the year.
They wouldn't go to bed, they would not go home. They would finish their night out at 2 in the morning and go, right, let's get down to the station, ready for the train in the morning.
Again, it might be the island mentality. We're taking our island mentality onto the mainland.
Or the mainland's coming onto the island.
Yeah. So we think we've got our right to defend it.
Right, ingrained in history, we've been the ones that have stood there and defended this country. So French come over, the Spanish come over. You've now got it that you've got people from London want to come down, Flash Cockneys want to come down, Northern Monkeys want to come down. And we'll defend ourselves from them because we are the first line of defence.
We call it doing the Goldsmith Walk. So the away fans, if they come by train, they've got to walk from the station maybe a mile, to get to the ground. Yeah, as soon as the away train come in, you're out there with bottles and glasses.
It was a post-war peace. The aggression of the city still existed and probably had to sort of channel itself in a different way. I think with football coming along, it found it's a great avenue to do that.
But it wasn't just trouble the 657 were known for, as they were also making headlines for their creativity.
The sheer creativity of them is just so admirable for me.
Very inventive in them days, you had to be. There wasn't no internet, was there?
Making fake wedding invitations and sneaking behind the police's back like that is just genius.
The gang had hoped to escape police notice by pretending to be a wedding party in hired morning suits and top hats.
The police held all the Pompey back and then they said, where are you lot going? We said, oh, we're going to a wedding. And we'd had wedding invites printed up.
In fact, during one period of the late 80s, the firm became such a force on the island, they even decided to run for Parliament.
In the June general election, when Martin Docker Hughes was nominated as the 657 candidate for Parliament. To outsiders, it may have seemed a joke, but for the gang themselves, it was a good way to cock a snook at the establishment and show their strength.
When you say it now, imagine if a group of lads basically wanted to run for Parliament. It's a joke and it wouldn't happen to be a national scandal.
The Marty Docker Hughes-led 657 party ran on a manifesto of Pompey-focused policies that ranged from the interesting to the downright bizarre.
Magistrates to have served time.
Duty-free on the Gosport ferries.
Now, whilst yes, the policies the 657 ran on were in jest, there is one policy you sense really does reflect the feelings of this city.
Yeah, Portsmouth out of Hampshire.
Yeah, no, we could be our own independent. The people of Portsea, our own republic.
If they wanted to do it now, I'd agree now.
Yeah. And I really feel this is because more than the class divide, more than the wealth divide, if there's one thing in Hampshire fans of Portsmouth FC hate more than any other, it's 16 miles up the M27, none other than Southampton.
The two towns, are inherently different.
Now, whilst it may not be situated on a literal island, Southampton, just like Portsmouth, owes its entire existence to the ocean.
The city has been built on the docks.
However, unlike Portsmouth, whose docks are vastly occupied by work involving the Royal Navy, Southampton's ports play host to a variety of maritime industries, from shipping to cruises to yachting. And it's perhaps because of these industries that Southampton doesn't feel as rough as their neighbours up the M27, something Portsmouth fans are adamant to stress.
From the 80s, I remember Southampton as being a very pleasant, middle-class kind of city.
However, everyone in Southampton sees it very differently.
It's very much a blue-collar city. I mean, what you've got to remember about Southampton is Southampton's a port, and it's been built as a port. All of Southampton's success and its growth has been built on the port. So that's meant that it's been very working class.
We are, up here, is a little bit more refined. They think we're like posh. We're not posh. It's not, we're a working class city.
Yeah. It's not very posh here, is it?
Definitely not around here.
I've never been on a yacht in my life.
I mean, they will say they are the working class city, but they are the city with a Conservative MP.
It's very left wing. The docks in Southampton has always been working class.
Ah, we're not posh. We're all pig farmers down here, aren't we?
There's nothing posh about Southampton.
This is the most working class city in the south of England.
You know, pound for pound, we've got as many working class areas as what Pompey has. You know?
Western, Sholing, Forney, Millbrook, Shirley, Warren. Yeah, they're all shitholes.
They're all big council type estates, aren't they?
Especially from Millbrook.
Yeah, Millbrook's probably one of the rougher estates in Southampton. It's a massive estate. Like.
It's not the nicest of areas if you're not from here. Like if you came into the pub, you wouldn't be in the pub very long if you wasn't with someone that you knew. But then when you're from here and you know everyone, you walk in the pub and you see everyone, you don't think it's that bad at all. It's just natural. You feel right, don't you?
I feel like now that you're here, now that they've said I know you. And whilst Pompey's oceanic surroundings may have created a hostile environment to outsiders, here in Southampton, the sea has had the opposite effect.
Well, we are the gateways to the world because people come to Southampton to sell from here to New York and anywhere around the world.
We were the gateway to the world because we took passengers over the world, we took freight over the world.
So they've got this really weird inbred mentality. Oh, we're Pompey.
We had our arm unopened because we wanted things to come in, whereas Portsmouth had theirs outstretched like that to stop. They've got an island, they've got a mentality, and it's always been very insular, whereas we opened ourselves up to the world.
And then, of course, there's the horrors of war that Southampton have suffered themselves.
Have a look at this city, film it. It's all modern, because this city was decimated by the Blitz.
Yeah, the Nazis really ruined this town.
There's a couple of places you can still see the evidence now. There's a church just down from Bargate that's completely smashed to pieces.
My grandparents, they were bombed out of their house.
And then, of course, there's the tragic effect of Titanic.
Well, the Titanic sailed from here, and there was hundreds, if not thousands, of people from Southampton who worked as porters and they worked in the kitchens. They went on the Titanic and they died on the Titanic.
When the ship went down, it was a disaster that affected us all.
So my great uncle died on the Titanic, aged 27. He was the second senior engineer.
I heard more people died from Southampton than any other city.
True.
They're up there now, looking down on us now.
Not to mention their own link with the military.
Well, you got a military base.
In Southampton?
Yeah, in Marchwood, yeah.
We had a few battles, didn't we? French had a 100-year war in 1338.
The Spitfire was built here. They bombed it because they wanted to bomb the factories that were making the Spitfire. That's why, in the end, they used to make parts for the Spitfire around the country, because they used to do it just in Southampton, in Woolston.
And their own passion for local history.
Just about a bit of history, so the water used to come right up to these walls.
You had a look around the old town yet? You had to walk the Southampton walls?
Have you gone past the Westgate yet, where the Pilgrim Fathers walked through before going to America?
We had 19 towers here.
In like the 20s, Southern Railway, when they built the docks, reclaimed the land. So essentially this should be like shallow water. Yeah, it's on the way. There's a lot of history here. There's loads.
And so just like up the motorway, in a historic city with a working class community and a history of hardship, where do you turn for civic pride? None other than the football club, the only one in the city, Southampton FC.
If you said to most people Southampton, the first thing they'll think of is the football club.
Southampton FC represents the city, it is the city. It's in everyone's thoughts. Even the people who don't really like football support the team. That club was formed in a St Mary's Young Man's Christian Association. in a church.
A lot of people in religion are sort of presented as saints. So.
Up the fucking Saints.
Now, just like up the road, you quickly realise Southampton's only football club is at the core of this city's identity.
Over the years, it's built up a siege mentality. You know, we are Southampton, the football team represents our city.
There is just a lot of passionate Southampton fans.
I never realised it until we went down to League One.
You look at when we went down to League One, we were still getting really quite good average attendances.
And just like up the road, the club's badge reflects the city's maritime origins.
Because of where we are geographically in the country, it's a really weird sort of phenomenon. Where we have 2 tides.
That's why we have 2 waves on it, because we have 2 tides, which is unique in England, which means we can get ships in and out, which can double the capacity.
And whilst they may not have been as infamous as the 657, Southampton's fan base also had an element you didn't really want to cross.
We used to have terrible tear-ups, terrible fighting. The Warrens, the Warrens.
We used to drink in a place called the Warrens, which was quite infamous.
Back in the day, you know, the pubs like the Warrens and all that sort of stuff, extremely tough pubs with extremely hard men in them.
So I was one of the Warrens lads, which I've got down here, you see, that's on my leg down there. So that was the Warrens.
So Southampton's crew were the Warrens, but there was more than the Warrens.
That's the trouble with Southampton. There's Southampton's so big that people didn't get on with each other from all over the city, so we never actually had one firm. What used to happen was...
You get groups from Weston and Thornhill and all this sort of stuff, different estates.
How many crews did you guys have?
About 4 or 5.
There were so many groups here. Because we're bigger, the city's more spread out.
We go away from home and we end up fighting each other.
So whereas they just had 657, you guys were spread out all over.
Yeah, we was all spread out.
But when it comes to Pompey, everyone in Southampton joins together.
It was loads of lads.
Inside crew.
Well, the inside crew, yeah.
Yeah, they were after me really, and you'd have the wagon lot from the painted wagon.
But this is never in any of their books. This is never, you know.
Where are your books?
We don't. We are, as you've noticed today. You've been in Southampton today. How many people want to be on camera?
Not a few.
Very few.
Southampton said that you guys, the difference is that you guys like to talk, they don't. What would your rebuttal to that be? Would it be that
They've got nothing to talk about?
What a fucking bunch of dinlos. So what happened at the joiners then?
They keep saying that we don't do anything, but when you do, they just dismiss that.
But where a distinct difference in these 2 clubs, at least today, can be found, is in their stadiums. Now you see, up until 2001, Saints played out of the Dell, a legendary stadium as iconic as Fratton Park.
Great place, crowded, packed. I mean, it was intimidating in the Dell.
It was a football ground, proper old school football ground.
What were the facilities like?
Oh, horrible. It's like Neanderthalic. You know,
It's the Dell?
Yeah, you go and have a piss and it'd end up on your foot. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it was proper football.
But you prefer that?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
It was almost like the big teams didn't like playing there.
I remember us giving Beckham stick. Remember in '99 when they won the treble? And he had his blonde hair and he's running up and he just turned at us and gobbed that up.
And our record against the bigger teams was so good.
Because that intimidation, that closeness to the players, you're right there next to them, they're trying to pick the ball up and just twat.
But with ambitions to take the Saints to that next level, the club decided to move on and build a newer, bigger, more modern stadium in St Mary's, the neighbourhood where the Saints were formed all the way back in 1885. Now, whereas usually having a shinier, newer, bigger stadium would be used as a stick to beat your rival with, you really get the sense that here on the South Coast, they don't really consider fancier as better. And so the preferred style of stadia is actually old school.
We miss the Dell. Even though we've got a lovely stadium now, I miss the Dell because of that intimidation.
What's your Dell like?
It's better than this place.
Why?
You always had a restricted view, you had a big pillar in the way, couldn't see much.
You preferred that?
Yeah.
That's what football's all about. It's gone away, it's too corporate. It's taken it away from your average Joe Public fan.
You could say if we didn't have that stadium, we wouldn't be where we are now, and the things that have happened in terms of good things wouldn't have happened either.
And to make matters worse for Saints fans, when it comes to stadium comparison, well, legend has it that Pompey fans made their own contribution to St Mary's.
And as a kid at school, we were always told that Pompey builders had worked on St Mary's, and they'd lined Pompey shirts in a circle where the centre circle was going to be.
Who told you?
It's the first I've been made aware of it, but...
Believe what you want.
Oh dear, that's a Portsmouth.
And whilst that story might just be a legend, what we definitely know is true is what the Pompey fans contributed to the Saints training ground and academy.
Portsmouth builders put in...
What we've gone and planted inside the wall?
Pompey shirts inside the academy walls when they were concreting it.
Nice little surprise. for the scum if they ever decide to take the wall down.
Yeah, and that guy then got sacked, so who had the final laugh?
I think if it's a Pompey fan, it's probably still him.
Yeah, yeah.
But whilst the stadium argument may swing in Pompey's favour, where Saints can boast and have been boasting one over their neighbours for nearly half a century, is when it comes down to the academy, because they've got one of the best, arguably in Europe or the world, and it's enriched not only the club, but the community for years.
Gareth Bale, Theo Walcott, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Andrew Sermon, Adam Lallana, Callum Chambers, Luke Shaw, Jan Valery now, Matt Targett. And then you've got the scouting, so since we've been back up, you've got like players like Virgil van Dijk, Toby Alderweireld, Dejan Lovren, Graziano Pella, Dusan Tadic, Sadio Mane, and again, that's just a few off the top of my head. Players who have come through our doors, and then we sold for a massive profit.
Liverpool isn't made out of fucking Portsmouth players, is it? Liverpool's made out of Southampton players.
The fact is you built Liverpool's Champions League winning.
Essentially, yeah.
And that's the difference. All right, we might be a feeder club, but we are feeding good players. They are a feeder club, they're feeding shit.
But you really get the sense in speaking to them that the real pleasure Saints fans get from this academy isn't from the stars they've created from Southampton, but the ones they picked up from up the motorway.
James Ward-Prowse is a Portsmouth-born season ticket holder.
He was a season ticket holder at Fratton Park.
He was a season ticket holder at Fratton Park.
And that's all right. When he got to Southampton, he had to have this operation, and they took the bits of skin out from his toes, right? So when his feet weren't webbed, he actually started playing football properly, which was really nice to see.
Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, his father played for Pompey and was a youth team coach in Pompey and sent his son to Southampton.
You're lying, no way.
No.
That says it all, doesn't it?
But where the tale of Southampton's youth academy advantage really resonates is in the story of Bobby Stokes.
Bobby Stokes, who won us the cup, came from Portsmouth.
Scored our winning goal, you know, probably our most beloved player.
Does that make it better though that he did that?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Why?
It's like I say, because it's like someone from Portsmouth has given us our greatest ever moment.
But here's where things don't really add up. I mean, surely a couple of stolen players and a slight class difference doesn't equate to a rivalry this deep.
I fucking hate them so much.
I mean, in our short time already on the South Coast, we have come across a hatred that is on par with almost anything we've experienced in the UK.
Ferrari John. He's just he's a random guy, really nice guy. He won't touch nothing blue.
Perhaps anything we've experienced in Europe.
He won't even, right? So if you're doing shots in the bar, and you're doing the old, if you gave him a blue drink, he would not drink it.
Arguably even the world.
They put a picture of a Pompey player, but they grafted his head onto the Pompey player like that. And he smashed the fucking bar up.
This is hatred.
I've tried really hard because I am a really peaceful person.
This is a deep, deep hatred.
But it's unfathomable. Like when I meet someone from Southampton, it makes something weird happen. Like my spine feels weird.
For some, it affects how they socialise.
Could you be mates with someone from?
No. Can you get along with a scummer?
I've shagged one once.
For some, it affects their business.
No, look, I told you I've got that mate. He's got a garage and he won't even service a blue car.
For some, it even compromises their children's birth.
Jack's a good mate of mine. He's ex-Marine commando. He's from Southampton. His missus was supposed to be giving birth in Portsmouth because he was based down there, and he got a Land Rover from work and drove her to Southampton because he said there's no chance my kid's ever going to be born in Pompey.
It's not just any year, but at times when the maternity hospital in Southampton has been overflowing, and they've said that they transport, mothers in labour to Portsmouth, people have turned around and said, no, I'm not having that.
I'm not having my baby.
I'm not having my baby born in a Portsmouth postcode.
You're nodding to that.
Yeah.
It's actually happened. And for absolutely everyone, the name of their rivals is something they refuse to say.
Yeah, I call it the P word. It's the P word.
They call us scummers, as you know.
Yeah. P-U-P-M-F-A, scum. Yeah. What does it stand for?
Play out Pompey, we fucking hate scum.
But some fans take pride in the term scummers.
Some of them do. There's a few flags that go about with scum army.
I'm more than happy with that name, yeah. Scum and proud.
Why they call us the scummers, we call them the skates.
What's a skate? It's a type of...
Fish.
It's a type of fish.
No, it is a fish.
A skate is a fish?
Yes.
And what's Pompey got to do with him?
Because the fishermen have no women.
Old fishermen, they used to, when out at sea,
hello, fish. The fishermen.
What?
Guys out there, fuck the fish.
Who did?
The fishermen in Pompey. That's why they're skates.
Fish fondlers, they play with the fish.
They used to have sex with them.
It's all about the fish.
It's all about the fish. The skates, you call them skates?
No, I don't. I call them cunts.
I mean, this is hatred.
So the question for me is, where does this hatred actually originate from? I mean, if this came down to geography, or who's king of the South Coast in this case, surely Bournemouth or Brighton would also have a rivalry.
What
about Bournemouth and Brighton? How come you don't have a rivalry?
It's just like their retirement homes, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, look. This is like we're playing Bournemouth tonight, and look at it. Where are they?
A case of David versus Goliath doesn't really add up because both teams could stake their claim at who's a bigger club.
we are the pride of the South in silverware alone.
They were always in Division 4, Division 3, and we were always in divisions above them.
But what's the show for that?
Basically, out of 60 years, only 5 years have they been above us.
You can run fast for a long time, doesn't mean you win the race.
Yeah, we're used to being there, and they're used to being there.
We've won the 4th division, the 3rd division, the 2nd division and the 1st division, so we've won them all.
You might have won a couple of cups years ago, I don't give a shit about that. It's about the here and now, isn't
It doesn't matter what's happening right now in a way because of what we've done.
Pompey winning the league in 1951 has no relevance to them as a club now, but they go on about it. They'll harp on about it time after time and time again, so we will say,
we're Premier League. They're fucking nobody's.
I don't even watch Premier League. I can't be asked to watch Premier League.
It can't be about who's the king of the county, as both sides feel very differently about Hampshire.
They don't consider themselves Hampshire, so they don't support Hampshire as much as we do.
You like being Hampshire?
Yeah.
Does Southampton want to leave Hampshire?
no, we're very much Hampshire.
And it certainly can't come down to history, as this rivalry has seen arguably less meetings than any other major derby in British football.
Yeah, we always seem to miss each other for some reason.
In fact, the contradicting roller coaster of these two teams' position and fortune in the Football League is one of the greatest stories in football, where for over a century now, whenever one side is enjoying their greatest highs, the other is suffering their worst lows.
They go down and we come up, or we go down, they come up.
They just meet in between as they're going up and down.
It's like roles reverse, isn't it?
So, I mean, you look at the kind of derbies everyone knows about. You've got the Merseyside derby, the North London derby. They're played every season, whereas with us, it literally seems to be if Saints are doing well, Pompey are doing crap. And if Saints are doing bad, Pompey are doing well.
A fucking fish fondler.
If you look back at history, there's not been one time where both teams have been successful in the same league at the same time.
That's a pretty unique thing.
Yeah.
It's mental. It's quite, that makes it such an enjoyable derby because we've both spent our time in hell, we've both spent our time in heaven.
In 1976, the Southampton win their only ever FA Cup.
First time I saw my father cry because he was so happy.
Pompey get relegated to the 3rd division. In 78, as Southampton go up to the 1st division, Pompey go down to the 4th for the first time ever. In 2008, as Pompey win the FA Cup, the Saints survive going down to the 3rd on the final day. The next year, as Pompey are hosting Ronaldinho's AC Milan at Fratton Park, Southampton goes down to the 3rd division for the first time in 50 years.
I would say possibly our lowest moment.
And in 2012, when the Saints go back up to the Prem, Pompey on the verge of going bankrupt in the 3rd division.
It was a very tough time.
And so with both teams having so rarely occupied the same leagues in the football pyramid, it comes back to that question of why such hatred? Until you realise that, unlike many other footballing rivalries, this division doesn't have its roots in the game.
It's not about football, it's about life itself.
It's not about football's the second part. We hate them, they hate us, then football.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter, this is not just a football game. If you go to, say, Merseyside and take the Liverpool-Everton derby, the fans are passionate about their football teams, but then they're all passionate about the same city.
It's a city thing, isn't it? I mean, we don't like them, they don't like us.
About two cities who live close by, but there's a wall in between, and whatever side of a wall on, you've got a different view of life, a different view of everything than the people with the other wall.
You know, and that's it, and it's never going to change.
Where if you go to the Buenos Aires derby, it's a city divided by a football team. We are two cities divided by a field around Park Gateway. We're divided by culture, we're divided by everything. If they were to have a game of tiddlywinks.
Hampshire Premier League. Paulsgrove v Bush Hill, but Bush Hill is the team for this pub.
Okay, and Portsmouth is an infamous area of its own in Portsmouth.
Yeah, and they came down to play him.
I mean, this is hatred.
Well, normally, any other game you'll probably get 50, 30, 40.
What happened on that day?
On that day, we had over 300 here watching. All lads, all watching.
Lads?
No, all football hooligans all out there watching, with the dogs on the sideline, running down the wing, let the dog off the lead to draw on the ball while they're running down the line.
I've never heard of anything like that. So this hatred hasn't come from football. Football's just helped facilitate the hatred from the two cities.
Yes.
But while both sides are adamant that this hatred didn't start in football, neither fan base can come up with a consistent answer to where it actually did.
I don't know if it's jealousy or they've got a chip on their shoulder about something.
Well, we are definitely jealous that we've become a bigger city.
They're just scummers, aren't they?
Why? Why
they
where'd that name come from?
And I said, what's going to be a fucking scummer?
From my, it's more than it come from my ancestors. Doesn't matter, where did it come from?
If you pull them, if you say, you call me a fucking scummer, you prick, they straight away, they're like, oh no.
In the 1930s, when there was a dog strike in Portsmouth, the only way they broke the strike was bringing busloads of scummers in, so everyone in the town lost their jobs.
They make up stories about South Coast Union men.
But I heard that was a myth.
Well, the Southampton Union members.
Yeah.
That's what it comes short for.
South Coast Union members. There's no union exists.
Everyone in Southampton tells us it's a myth.
Rubbish.
Portsmouth made this up.
Rubbish. The whole country came out of strike.
This never happened.
And they carried on working, and that's where they got their name.
There's a great thing called Mythbusters, and if you go on that, it tells you the whole story is fake.
They say it's not true. I don't know what to believe.
Go back, check history.
Wait, don't listen to me. Google it, guys. Google it.
Look in the papers. Look at the book.
Google it, please.
Papers don't lie.
Just please. If you want to know about the docks, Google it.
My father,
yeah,
who's dead, was a stevedore in Portsmouth.
What's that?
A docker.
Okay.
Right? And lost their job.
Because Portsmouth have been getting away with this for fucking years.
And everyone stopped, but they wanted to come here and work.
They always say that we went down there and broke their strike. They've never had a strike in Portsmouth docks because Portsmouth docks is a naval docks and you're not allowed to strike in a naval dock.
But they said there's...
Now, right in the last 20 years, Portsmouth stevedores have gone to Southampton and worked.
So is it...
No, it's true.
He's laughing. You can't show him, but he's laughing. But then isn't it even? Can't you get along now? Do you think there'll ever be peace between you? Someone will Google it.
I hope not.
What, you hope not?
No.
You like the rivalry?
Yeah, I fucking hate Portsmouth.
No, we don't want to get along.
Our grandparents lost their jobs.
Yeah, but you just took
There's
their
only
jobs.
one thing for them.
Fucking hell.
Everything about them. That's why we call them Portsmouth. They really are Portsmouth.
History's written by the winners, and we subscribe to the piece of history we want, and I subscribe to the belief that Southampton dockers, as in the Southampton Community Union men, scum, scabbed over the Portsmouth dock.
They are Portsmouth. They are Portsmouth.
Do you think these myths play a big part of this, especially in this age of...
Of course they do.
Well, in my research for this derby, one of the best anecdotes I came across was in the Bobby Stokes biography, written by a self-confessed Southampton fan, and in his chapter, Skates and Scummers, on the rivalry, of course. I'll let his own words tell you the story. Go to the second floor of Portsmouth Library, past the giant bust of Charles Dickens, towards a wall of filing cabinets, carefully packed with countless reels of negatives containing archived copies of the Portsmouth News since it began publication. By a strange quirk of coincidence, the reel of film for May 1976, which one would assume would have details of Southampton's 1976 FA Cup final victory, is missing. Essentially saying, in Portsmouth's central library, they've gotten rid of the evidence of Southampton's one and only FA Cup, and they're so obsessed with their rivals that they actually try and delete their history. In all my time, I don't think I've ever come across something like that in a rivalry, so I got to see this for myself. The whole reel's there.
No, nothing's marked that it was missing at any point.
Who's this written by?
Southampton supporter.
Because if there's something missing right there, it says that's missing.
Let's see what they say about the history being written by the winners.
It was 76, May 1976.
May 1976. It's here.
It's never gone missing.
It just never happened.
So they're basically written.
They've just rewritten a new story.
Strange. I don't know why they've said that.
Very much like the Docker strike. It never happened.
Maybe everyone's lying in this rivalry. I mean, in an age of fake news, I guess I shouldn't really be surprised, but I can't help but feel it's a bit ironic that in two cities where the locals take such pride in their knowledge of local history, it's alleged lies, myths and exaggerations that have allowed to create this intense hatred.
The truth of the matter is, going back to what we said earlier, that...
Keep saying the truth of the matter, but what is the truth? Whether it's the docs or reporting or who's more of a warrior. Is that what this is about? Who's harder?
You're at school and you say, oh, my dad's this, my dad's that, you know, my dad could beat up your dad. It's like a similar vibe, but for cityship. So when I say, my city's this, my city's that, my city could beat up your city.
They think they are, but they're not.
They are.
Well, they probably are. They probably are hard.
Could it be
but
that
still, yeah,
could
but
it just be that you're both hard? Could you just both be hard?
Maybe.
But look, whatever is fact and whatever this rivalry really is about, there is one definite truth. On the rare occasions these two sides meet competitively, there is always headlines. 66 is where they say it really got messy.
Yeah, probably about the mid-60s, yeah.
They meet less than a handful of times before 76 and the last-minute relegator.
So Mick Shannon scores last minute, which condemns Pompey to relegation to the third tier of British football.
We're relegated, and then
the Pompey fans empty out of the Fratton end at the other end and reappear mysteriously behind the away end.
The game's still going on. They were jumping the walls, getting onto the pitch.
The next year they meet again, and they arrest the train.
As soon as they got to the station, the police surrounded it and nicked everyone on the train.
They don't meet again for 6 years until '84 and the Battle of Fratton.
The Battle of Fratton, that was an apt title.
No, God, still gives me goosebumps.
It was carnage up Frogmore Road after.
We had 9,000 behind the goal.
No, that was in the way end, and they made fake tickets to go in the Pompey end.
But they caught the old Bill pulled it.
As the game headed to a 0-0 draw,
yeah, they were throwing coins.
Our fullback, Mark Dennis, went to pick up the ball.
And a 50p piece hit him on the head.
And he went down, sort of clutching his head.
I mean, it was nothing really. Went down, made a meal of it.
In the injury time, because there was an injury to his head from the thrown coin, the Portsmouth supporters are singing "Scummers, Scummers, here we come," i.e. we're coming down to the Dell on for the replay on Tuesday night, and then...
We scored, and our end went mental, and I was actually physically damaged that day because our end went so mental. I nearly broke my leg.
What, from celebrating?
From celebrating.
That's a next level lyrics.
It was absolutely mad.
It's another 4 seasons till they meet again, 87, 88, and it's the most arrested.
Yeah, there was all sorts going on that one.
It's a whole 8 years until they meet again competitively, 96 in the Cup, and for once, fortunately, there's no trouble. And whilst they didn't meet again competitively that decade, the 90s still gave us the unfriendly friendly.
Oh, it kicked off big time after that.
The Battle of Covent Garden.
They turned up and they put a gas canister in the pub.
They put a what?
A gas canister in the pub.
Where'd you even get a T-gas?
eBay, I don't know.
eBay? But it was in the mid-2000s where things really took a turn for the worse.
It ramped up to another level.
For the first time in more than half a century, the two sides met in the league for 3 consecutive seasons, as well as League and FA Cup. And whilst they maintain that the reason this rivalry can be so violent is due to the fact that they meet so rarely, well, when they met frequently, it was arguably worse.
I went to school that was right near Fratton Station, and you could just see the cars the next day, and it was like Gomorrah the next day. Brick walls were smashed down in front of people's houses. There wasn't a wing mirror left on the car on our side of the street.
Do you think that's affected you in any way? See it being witness to these kind of scenes?
More bragging rights.
In true South Coast Derby style, the two haven't met since 2012 here at St Mary's, a meeting which had its own mad headlines.
The 2-2 draw.
Oh yeah, I did enjoy that.
It's my favourite game of football of all time.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, don't even mention that.
Yeah, I've never laughed so much in my life.
That was probably the worst I've ever felt coming out of a football ground.
We were literally in financial deprivation at that point. They're top of the league, we're bottom of the league. They're laughing at us. There's a video, I don't know why some idiot scummers put it on YouTube, but there's a video from their perspective. They're also like all their crap songs, and I don't even know. Do you know what I mean? Like, and they're viewing the Pompey fans. They're all there like that. It's last kick of the game. Big hoof up the pitch. David Norris. Boom. And I've never seen a crowd erupt like it. The Southampton fans are just like, oh.
It was worse than getting relegated when I was 7 years old. Worse than finding out we were in administration.
When I'm really, really down, I save it for that. Like in emergency break glass, I watch that clip. It's my favourite goal of all time, David Norris.
And in true South Coast Derby style, that season saw Saints go up and Pompey go down, and for the last 7 years, the two teams have occupied completely different worlds.
We've been quite successful in the Premier League.
We've gone to the top league there in the... What league are they in now?
Like, they've been in the bottom 2 divisions now for the last sort of 7-8 years.
League One, yeah, League One.
But we've had a couple of good cup runs, 2 times in Europe.
All of which meant that for 7 years now, the only way these two were ever going to meet was through the luck of a cup draw. For the last 7 years, every time there was a cup draw.
Praying for them, yeah. But it's very rare that you get them in the cup. It's so rare, so every time the draw gets done, it's like, oh, you've missed them again, and so you're waiting for next year, and where they're not a very good football team, they're not going to make very many rounds, so you've got to get them early doors, otherwise you're not getting them, to be honest.
But then, along came the 2019 third round League Cup draw.
I was in my front room. I was just sat down to have dinner, and I flicked the draw on, and just as I flicked it over...
I thought there's only about 4 balls left, and neither of us had come out.
Pompey come up. And then bang, next thing Saints. My plate, dinner gone.
And you go, right, here we go.
You'll never guess, you'll never guess, you'll never guess, you'll never guess. I'm like, no, say it ain't so. This Carabao Cup's getting a bad name.
This is the only derby!
You're waiting so long, when's it going to be, when's it going to be, and then you wait 5 years, 10 years, 7 years, or whatever it is, and then you finally get them, and that's when everything explodes. We always want them in the League Cup because it's a night game where it's dark, and obviously anything can happen in the dark.
Well, I tell you what, we've seen some pre-match hostilities in our time, but I don't think I've seen anything like that. I mean, it was almost 2.5 hours we were outside that station as those fans were trying to get to the Saints. And the same goes for those Saints fans. I mean, our camera guys weren't allowed near them, but from what I saw, they were just as fearless and just as adamant to get at the Pompey fans. Riot cops didn't stop them, the trucks didn't stop them, horses didn't stop them, even those dogs did not stop them. I mean, we know fighting and defending your honour is in their blood, and we know that street has seen some things, but even I didn't expect that. But now the weather's turned, we're running late. We got to get in because the match they've been waiting nearly a decade for is about to kick off. And it could be another decade till the next one.
We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling, just like you always do, till the blue skies drive the dark clouds away. So will you please say hello to the folks that I know, tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song. So will you please say hello to the folks that I know, tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you say